We will call this meeting of the Palmer City Council to order on February 11th, 2025 at 6 o'clock. Get any feedback. I'd like to turn it down a little. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Here.
Councilmember Cooper.
Here.
Councilmember Best.
Here.
Councilmember Graver.
Here.
Mayor Carrington.
Here.
Councilmember Hudson.
Here.
Councilmember Alcantra.
Here.
All here.
All right. If everyone could stand. And Mr. Wilson, can I ask you to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Next is approval of the agenda. What's the wishes of the council?
Second.
All right. Is there anyone opposed to approving the agenda as presented? Then we'll declare that unanimous. Next, we have the Golden Heart Lifetime Achievement Award presentation. And I wanted to ask Councilmember Hudson, who nominated this person, to go ahead and present Mrs. Rowell. Oh, is that turned on?
I thought I saw it turning on.
Okay. There you go.
Hi, Miss Cindy. I just wanted to read this really quickly. It's what I sent in when I was nominating you. I am honored to nominate Cindy Rao for the Golden Heart Award in recognition of her outstanding service to our community as our fire chaplain. Cindy has selflessly given countless hours of her time and energy to serve the people of Palmer, demonstrating a rare combination of kindness, compassion, and unwavering dedication. Her commitment to the well-being of our community is unmatched. Cindy plays an active role in numerous local events, always bringing a sense of care and warmth to each one. Whether it's participating in Breakfast with Santa, volunteering at Friday Fling, or teaching children about fire safety, Cindy is there engaging with our youth and helping to create a safer, more informed community. Her efforts go beyond education. She is there for children and families in moments of crisis, offering comfort and guidance when they need it most. As fire chaplain, Cindy's work extends to some of the most difficult and emotional situations our community faces. While we cannot fully comprehend the emotional toll this work has entailed, we know that Cindy provides a crucial support system during times of tragedy and loss. Her ability to listen, offer solace, and provide spiritual and emotional care in the hardest moments is a testament to her deep compassion and dedication to our community. Cindy's interactions with children during fire station tours are another reflection of her loving and thoughtful nature. She connects with the young ones in a way that makes them feel heard and safe, while also teaching them valuable lessons about fire safety. Her respectful and kind demeanor with city employees further illustrates this heart of a true leader, one who builds bridges, fosters positive relationships, and always leads with empathy. Cindy embodies the pioneering spirit of Palmer, exemplifying the values of kindness, compassion, passion, and unwavering dedication. Her genuine care for others, both in public and behind the scenes, makes her a cornerstone of our community. It is with great pride and gratitude that I nominate Cindy Rao for the Golden Heart Award. She is a shining example of the compassion that makes Palmer such a special place to live.
And well, yeah, sure. There's a microphone right there.
See
Go
that
ahead.
I am just one person who is in a group of many servants, and we have an amazing fire department that I am so blessed to be a part of. And honestly, every one of their names should be on this plaque as well. I love them, and if it weren't for them, I wouldn't have the opportunity to serve like I get to. So thank you so much.
We'll take a short break so people can congratulate her.
minutes and then you might have to change the order.
Shelley,
Yes, ma'am.
you post on the website.
You can send it to me and I'll send it to Kristen. Okay. Yeah, that'd be great, thanks.
We got the time zone wrong.
I called. She said, "Are you sure?" Yeah, it's not a joke. LOL.
Yeah, I'm
He
sure.
is joking. Yeah, he's so bad. Did you all agree? Yeah, everyone in the community agrees.
They're on a Teams meeting.
You're the chat.
Oh, well, this is Zoom.
Yeah, this guy. It's Carla Brown and Rick.
Yeah, you can get one. Wasn't there?
Hey,
Wasn't it Athens?
I can always
I think they're Tom's.
So you know some iced tea? When you need caffeine, I guess? In cold, that would be so nasty.
For those that may be wondering, we're trying to connect with the next item of our agenda is for our HR firm to be zooming in.
They're probably doing it now later. Oh, I think it last time. I get that all the time.
So, Mr. Manager, did you put these out on the table for everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So we have an R.
Rick?
Can they hear us?
Rick?
Good evening. I can hear you.
All right. I presume this is Rick Battis?
This is.
Okay. Well, so how are we going about this, Mr. Manager? John?
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of council. I'd like to introduce you to Rick Battis and Carla Byland. They are our human resources consultants that we've been working with for the city manager hiring process. They're here tonight to answer any questions you have on the process or just anything in general. We've put out some interview questions in front of you. And have, in this meeting, we've also presented you with
with a little bit lesser redacted application, as well as an executive summary of the background checks that were conducted. So at this point, leaving it up to council and the human resources consultant to kind of move the process forward as council wishes.
All right. Who's that? Councilman Best.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Bettis, would we just kind of have you bring us up to speed of what you guys have performed for us and kind of what you see kind of the process going forward? So that would be the best way, I guess, to bring the audience and everybody into kind of where we are, what has happened, and then what's planned forward.
I can. So yeah, we came in the process. Applications had already been received. The posting was closed. At that time, we sent a rubric of all the applicants that we had. We had graded those applications and had the recommendation of highest to lowest. At that point, the city council reviewed and made the recommendation to move forward on the top 5. Those top 5, then we did background checks on. I think it was just the last week we sent the summary, executive summary of those background checks. And so that is kind of where we're at now. What's the next step? The next step then would be deciding on interviews and when those interviews you would want those interviews to be.
Is there any questions? Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are there any kind of typical things that you see cities making mistakes on during the hiring process that we should be aware of to avoid?
Hi, my name is Carla. I'll respond to that real quick if you don't mind. So the structure that we put in place is one that's intended to remove any bias. So by going through and looking at their qualifications, creating a rubric, selecting final candidates from that rubric, and then doing the background checks. So bias is something that we really just kind of want to remove, make sure that we're being fair and equitable to all of the candidates that are coming in. I think it's important to take a look at the executive summary of the background checks. We had some positive references and we had some that were not so positive. So at this point, if you want to move forward with 5 candidates to interview, perfectly fine. If you would like to scale it down maybe a little bit more and maybe interview 4 or 3, that's perfectly fine as well. But I would look at all of the information in front of you and make that decision. It was a great question.
Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you. This is Jim Cooper. A question for you regarding you do a
Get it
background.
closer.
You do a background check on the references. Do you contact all the employers and ask for comments or references or whatever?
So we used an external company to conduct the background checks, and they did verification of prior employment, verification of education. They conducted a criminal check, a civil check, and then they called the references that were listed.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is John Alcantara, council member. More of a question, I think, for our city manager. Have we already contacted all 5 of the potential candidates to be interviewed this week? Or are we not to that point yet?
we've not contacted any of the 5 to be interviewed this week.
Okay, then the question is for S3, kind of, one of the things I've personally been frustrated with is that, as you mentioned, you guys came in after the candidate, or after the period expired for city council or city manager candidates. You know, we're now 2.5 months since that's happened. And my fear is that, you know, the potential to lose some of the people that graded highest on your scoring algorithm and chart that you gave to us quite some time ago. So I do think I appreciate you guys doing that, and I think it was a good decision to bring you on board and kind of get us to a place where we can winnow the field a little bit. And just speaking for me, I like the idea of trying to maybe tonight winnow it down to a top 3 from a top 5, and by looking at those scores and other things. So thank you for your work, and their other questions really are for our city manager, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions of our S3 or comments from council? Councilmember Best.
Mr. Mayor, is this where we would have the conversation as the body of whether or not we're going to interview all 5 on Friday?
Yeah, I believe that we've been kind of focusing on Friday as the one date that might work for everybody.
I'm ready, willing to move this ball down the field.
All right. Councilmember
You can go first.
Graver.
Councilman Alcantara can go first if you would like.
We haven't heard from you. Let's have you go first.
Thank you. Councilman Graver for S3. So I, looking at the previously sent to us the kind of rating of all the candidates, and we took those top 5, and then taking this background check and everything into account, I would be okay with moving forward with the top 2, since if we were to go with the top 3, the bottom of that 3 had in disfavorable reference, so I would be okay with just interviewing the top 2.
Councilmember Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I definitely have some concerns, but I think that I would agree with just moving forward with the top 2.
Just making sure. Oh, Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so if I recall, the top 2 were Zirkle and Mazzaros.
That is correct. Sorry, that's
and then
who I was referring
to go along with what Councilman Alcantara mentioned, that we've been in this process for 2.5 months and concerned about other people moving on. And I've been in contact with Senator Sullivan's office, and knowing that Colby Hickle Zirkle has accepted a job as Director of Alaska Operations for Senator Sullivan in Anchorage. So to me, that takes it back down to 1, and I'm a little concerned with, going with 1. And what I don't want to do is push this procedure out and out and out. And I would, if we're down to 1, I would personally like to offer our current interim manager a contract for a year or 2 years until we can get our feet on the ground, figure out exactly what the heck we're doing.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to respectfully disagree. I do not think that the current interim city manager is providing us proper information on things pertaining to the city. And I also do not believe that per the city code, he has enough experience for us to consider as a candidate. Thank you.
Yeah, Council, Madam Attorney, sorry.
Literally on the process of how who's prioritized to win. Like if applicant A chooses to have another position in the future, but at that point, like right now, you still have no one. These are the valid ones that have withdrawn their names. So at this point, you should proceed with that information as is.
Oh, Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just agree with our attorney's comments. I don't think because we've heard that someone has taken a different job, it disqualifies them from the applicant pool. If we want to add more to that, if we're concerned that one of the individuals may not be interested any longer, that's fine with me then, but I don't think we need to pre-disqualify anyone because of what we've heard from someone else.
Councilmember, Madam Attorney.
That my button is not working, so I'll go like this, but we can't figure out how to
Oh,
turn it off.
that's why their light's on. Okay. 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 Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If the city manager has not yet contacted to see if the candidates are available on the 14th, would it be possible for us to consider the 13th as a council a day, or just to make sure that those two applicants are both going to be available on that day?
So, well, Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was also concerned about that, given that the 14th is a holiday. Personally, I would be willing to come in on the 13th and or the 14th if we had maybe one or two candidates that were available on either day, because I think this is really important.
Council chambers are occupied. Sorry, council chambers are occupied on the 13th already in here for that night. It's already in use, so we can't do it on that one.
Okay.
Just to let you know.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Because there's a potential for us to be down to, one or two candidates, I would actually ask that we continue with interviewing all five that we have planned. That way our options are on the table. And because as other council members have mentioned, that this has been an ongoing, long process. Why short-sighted the process and limit our availability right now. And also, I would not be available on the 13th anyhow myself. I already have prior commitments.
And I would remind council that a couple of manager hirings ago, we had, I think it was 4 or 5 finalists, and they whittled down to the point where we ended up just interviewing one. But we actually liked him, and he did really good for the years he was here. So, Councilmember Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that information from Councilmember Cooper just took some wind out of the sails for sure when it's our highest rated candidate for the job. So it does make me want to fall back onto what Councilmember Best proposed to maybe interview the other hopefully her as well, if she, depending on where she's at, but the top 5 candidates. Because yeah, I don't want to leave us where we just have one interview, or even 2 might make me a little nervous. But when it was going to be the top 2 that scored quite a bit higher than the rest, I was okay with it. But now that we're winnowing the field, I thought when we talked about the 14th on Valentine's Day, we had commitments from these people, and we had this block of 3 to 9 p.m. I was under the impression, I won't say it's a holiday necessarily, but doing anything on a Friday is not, you're not getting people's best foot forward, in my opinion. You don't buy a vehicle built on a Friday. You don't interview candidates on a Friday evening if you can avoid it. But if we're down to where our city manager has 3 calls, the top 5, and we only get 3 out of 5 to respond that they even want to interview, then we can try to plug in those spots accordingly on Friday the 14th. I'm okay with that. I hope they can be plugged in, 3 consecutive hours and not 1 at 3, 1 at 6, and 1 at 8. So let's, I guess I would entertain a motion, or make a motion that we at least make phone calls to the top 5 and try to schedule interviews for the 14th of February.
So that was a motion to basically invite the top 5 candidates, and I would say place them on a first come, first served basis to fill up the times at the beginning.
And Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just for those listening in here, I would make the motion that we have S3 and the city manager reach out for potential interviews to Colby Hickle Zirkle, Scott Messaros, Sydney Miller, Susanna Stennett, and David Pepper. Thank you.
So you got that as a motion? And Councilmember Best second. Okay, any discussion on that? Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I would like to suggest that we also have another date just penciled in in case they can't make it on the 14th, because I don't want, they might get a situation where like, well, they get to go to the job interview, or my spouse will be mad at me, kind of thing, because it is Valentine's Day. So what I was thinking is if we could, also availability penciled in for the 24th or 26th of this month as well, in case they can't make the 14th due to if they had dinner reservations or commitment already.
Do we, I don't know, I guess, do we want to stretch out the whole interview process by that long? Another 10 days? Yeah. Councilmember Hudson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we don't want to stretch things out too long, we could always offer them tomorrow, if the 13th, the chambers are occupied, and then also on Friday the 14th as 2 different options for times. If we're not wanting to stretch it till the 24th, I think giving these applicants 1 day on a holiday where they may have had reservations for months at these, different restaurants. There's not many to choose from in Alaska. We might want to consider being considerate to our candidates that have applied and when they have time for an interview.
Madam Clerk, hit the button.
I did, that's, the meeting for the 14th has already been posted in the newspaper and on the website, so it's scheduled at 3 p.m. and posted. So if you were to do it tomorrow, that would be an emergency meeting, is what that would be, if it worked out that way. So, just so you know, posting wise, that's where we are.
Okay. And so we have a motion and a second. Tomorrow is the 12th? What time were you thinking of on the 12th, so we know what we're thinking about here?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Thank you.
Councilmember Hudson.
I just wanted to make sure you were calling, or you were asking me. Thank you. Considering that many people hold regular jobs on this dais, I would like to say that I think we should do it starting no earlier than 5 p.m.
Councilmember Best.
I will not be available on that day.
Councilmember Alcantra.
Yeah, just to be completely transparent with the public here is that next week actually is a holiday, next Monday, but I don't get that holiday off. But a group of us are going to Juneau for a few days, and so that kind of blocks out that 18th, 19th, 20th for people. I'm thinking, well, why don't we just do it sometime early next week? So reality, if we could get the folks to commit to the Valentine's Day interviews, that's probably the best case scenario since we already have it published. If not, I would suggest and look to see who's available, as much as I hate to say it after what I just said, Friday the 21st as the alternative date for people that may say, no, I'm already going to Double Muskie with my spouse and I'm not gonna give it up to have an interview. So we really can't do earlier, I don't think, even though I know it's been waiting a long time. And I think if we set something in stone and just give them, hey, we can't do it Friday the 14th, we can do it Friday the 21st, if that's even possible for folks.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know when everyone's flights are scheduled on Monday, but mine isn't until 11 at night, and so I could potentially interview on Monday if that's a possibility, just in case that worked.
I believe my flight is somewhere in the middle of the day. Councilmember Hudson? 17? Councilmember Hudson?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I scheduled my flight for I think it's 7:30, so p.m. So I don't know when anybody else here is leaving on that date. So maybe it would have to be like a lot earlier in the day, around lunch, maybe lunchtime or something like that.
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, what is everyone coming back? Would Friday work? I'm okay with that if everyone's coming back on Friday. And that'd be the Friday the 21st.
At about what time?
Oh. Yeah, we could even, I don't care if we even start at 3, but probably 5. A little bit after 5.
I think Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. So the amendment to the motion would be, we're gonna ask for the 14th, see if everybody can do it on the 14th. If not, then we'll postpone it till, try to get everybody there on the 17th, beginning at 5 p.m. The 21st, I'm sorry, on the 21st, Friday the 21st.
The 21st.
He said 17.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant the 21st. Yeah, Friday the 21st.
Was that a motion?
And just for clarification, this is just for if some of the candidates can't do the 14th and we don't get them all taken care of, this would just be
Did we get a second on that?
Second.
Victoria, second, right?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I just want to make sure
Councilmember Hudson,
I'm
yeah.
seconding that we are going to do as many interviews as we can on Friday, and then any overflow on the 21st, and it's going to be for the top 5. I just want to make sure I know what I'm seconding. Okay, perfect.
Okay. And we're saying at
Second.
5 o'clock or? Okay. Mr. Manager, yes.
So to clarify, this Friday, February 14th, starting at 3 p.m., opening up slots till probably 7 p.m. And then next Friday, starting at 5 and going thereafter.
I believe that's right. Yes, but there's other
But
comments.
if we can accomplish all of them on the 14th, we want to do that, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't give them the option of the 20th. If they really want the job, they'll meet them.
Okay. So we have an amendment of adding the 21st as a overflow day or backup, starting at 5 p.m. All right, so we all done with discussion. So let's Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll for the amendment of adding the 21st to the 14th.
Councilmember Alcantra,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Graver,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Okay, so that modifies the original motion, which was to interview the 5 finalists, hopefully on February 14th with a backup plan if needed. Any more discussion? Okay. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll for the amended motion.
Councilmember Graver,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Tudor,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantra.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Okay. So I believe we've accomplished this task. Thank you very much, S3, for your participation and patience, yes. All right.
And thank you, and we will get on those scheduling.
Okay.
All right.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Next is the city manager's report.
All right, good evening, everybody, members of council, Mr. Mayor. The first topic I'd like to present to you was in the written report. And that is, we've had a company approach us, the owners of the oncology cancer department at the Matsu Regional Medical Center, approach us of the fire department and want to put a pink wrap on one of our fire engines. Included in the packet are 3 pictures. 2 of the pictures are wraps that have already been done. One down at the Central Emergency Services in Soldotna, one in the municipality of Anchorage. And then the third picture is our engine 3-1, which is right next door in station 3-1, to be wrapped in pink, proposed by the fire department to wrap in pink. So I was looking for council support to be able to do that. And also here tonight is Chief Prevost to answer any questions that you might have.
Councilmember Best.
Do we get to choose between the brightness of the piece? Because I really like this really bright one that's in the packet that we have, the Soldotna, the photograph of that one. I think something that really pops like that. For those of you that don't know, my family had a concrete company, and pink was our color, and you just cannot hide those things anywhere. They stand out. You want to talk about something that grabs your attention. And also, I've had family members and friends that have dealt with cancer and whatnot, and I really support this. Thank you.
Any questions of council? Do we want to hear from Acting Chief Prevost?
And if I also might add, there's no money that's going to change hands here. It's just they're going to pay for the wrap, and it'll be yep.
All right. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir, there is. I'd like to read to you, this is from the police department, a letter of commendation. I'm gonna skip through the very beginning of it because I'd like to omit some of the details of the call and get to what really matters in this letter here. So Officer Ryan Ogden responded to a suspected domestic violence call. It starts off here. A female was observed with significant facial injuries consistent with assault, and a seemingly adult male was lying nonchalantly on the floor of the room. The female reported the assailant was the seemingly adult male. The subject was passive to Officer Ogden's presence and gave the initial impression of being a potentially combative subject. Officer Ogden advanced on the subject with the intent of detaining him in handcuffs. As Officer Ogden approached, the female reported the subject was actually a juvenile, and the juvenile had a severe developmental delay and mental capacity of a toddler. Police work is inherently dangerous. Domestic violence situations are potentially the most volatile scene that a police officer can find themselves approaching. Each year, several police officers nationwide are feloniously killed responding to domestic violence situations. Officer Ogden's approach upon hearing the female report of the juvenile's mental capacity changed drastically. Officer Ogden switched from a professional, assertive police officer to one of compassion and sensitivity to the situation. Officer Ogden calmly approached the juvenile, introduced himself, and talked softly in order to maintain a sense of calm. Officer Ogden showed compassion and understanding throughout his investigation and the offenses committed. Officer Ogden's interview with the juvenile and subsequent decisions ultimately produced a constructive and safe outcome for this event. Had Officer Ogden attempted to approach the situation in a conventional manner and used an authoritative, commanding demeanor, the juvenile certainly would have reacted in panic and resisted Officer Ogden. The juvenile, Officer Ogden, and other officers could have been injured during this process. Further, the mental anguish suffered by the juvenile would have been catastrophic to his well-being and the well-being of his family. Officer Ogden's ability to remain calm in the situation and absorb the information in a rapid, clear, and logical manner contributed directly to the proper resolution of this investigation. His actions and behavior in keeping with the highest standard of professionalism and meritorious service expected of personnel at the Palmer Police Department. Ladies and gentlemen, Officer Ryan Ogden. And I also, one other thing I'd be remiss in not adding, situations, resolutions like this don't happen spontaneously. They don't just happen. They happen in an environment and in a culture that is meticulously cultivated and is by the leadership of our Palmer Police Department. So it's I would be remiss in not recognizing Detective Sergeant Clark, Commander Luke Zipsky, and of course Chief Dwayne Shelton for providing, not only providing the circumstances under which this can happen, but recognizing that once this did happen, this is a good thing and this is something that is worthy of commendation. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else, Mr. Manager?
That concludes my report.
Okay. Is there any questions for the manager? Councilmember Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're asking for council support for the wrap of the fire engine. Do we need anything other than say it's a great idea and we all love it?
That's what I was looking for, sir.
Oh, okay, that's a great idea. I love it.
Second.
Yeah. But, yeah, I think you've got support there, so. Any other questions for the manager? Okay. Next is mayor's report. In my mayor's report, I kind of reviewed and was reminding people of some of our speaking procedures which come out of our code and which I plan to kind of implement again, of taking turns and probably limiting talking to twice per person when we have debate, and also included another helpful guidelines from a interesting place called Jurassic Parliament. So that's my report. Is there any questions for the mayor? Okay. City clerk's report.
I would like to ask, thank you, I would like to ask Mr. Dementi about this, the questions. We did not cover that during the last conversation, so I'm
Oh,
trying
we should have had a little
not to belabor
discussion.
it, but I don't know how you want to proceed with that, but we need to get some answers, I think, or some input from the council, so I'm gonna defer to you.
Mr. Manager.
Yeah, there were some proposed interview questions placed in front of council before the meeting, and I don't know if it's necessary for council to decide what the questions for the interview are going to be or not. I don't know. I haven't been here with you, so I don't know what a proper procedure for that would be.
I think some of the time, I think we've actually kind of met like half an hour before the interviews, delayed the interviews by half an hour to kind of finalize, okay, which questions we're gonna ask. Or if people want to, I don't know, email in their choices, what's the council's Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm fine with either of those. I think, especially, if we come up with questions, we can email them and then we can, I'm perfectly happy to meet a little bit early and go over, both these questions and also the questions that were emailed in since then.
Okay. And I suspect we should probably narrow down the quantity. Councilmember Best.
If we're meeting before the meeting, then that we would not be able to have a quorum of council members because it need to be public. So I would ask that maybe you, the deputy mayor, and the deputy mayor, the three, kind of go through and pare it down. If I'm okay with that, if you guys kind of just pare down the questions, and if we all have some questions that we'd like to, go ahead and send them to you guys, and you guys can throw them into the mix, and then we'll just run with that. Because I liked pretty much all of these questions in here. I think we're all real good questions. I appreciate this consideration. But if there's other concerns that people have, I'll yield to the three to make those selections.
Okay. Does that sound okay to the council? Is there different ideas or objection? Okay. All right. Now, did you have a report as well?
That was my report.
That was your report. Keeping us
It was
on track.
important.
Yes, it was important. All right. Any questions for the clerk? Okay, city attorney's report.
So, I would like your attention for the next 2 hours as I no, I'm just kidding. No, but I do have about 10 minutes if I may. The council, at the last city council meeting, I was tasked to review a few different topics related to some questions, and I just wanted to give you an overview of those. So some of the questions that came out of the discussion, and these are not in any particular order of priority, but the questions are, what, if any, are the authorities and powers of the city council to sanction, censure, or remove an elected official? What are the differences between sanction and censure? What are the implementation process of each? Are there circumstances that allow a city council member to be removed, and if so, what are they? What are the differences between a Palmer Code of Conduct as an ethics policy and the Palmer Municipal Code? So first I'd like to address sanctions and letters of censure by a city council. In general, around the United States, councils have the authority to impose sanctions or issue letters of censure to address misconduct, ethical violations, or behavior that undermines the functioning of the council or violates its code of conduct. These actions are formal mechanisms that they're designed to ensure accountability among council members and maintain the integrity of the governing body. First, we have sanctions. Sanctions are defined as penalties or restrictions which are imposed on a council member for inappropriate or unethical behavior. The process of imposing sanctions usually involves an investigation of the alleged misconduct, discussions within the council, and a majority vote. Sanctions serve as a corrective measure to address and deter inappropriate behavior. In Palmer, the Palmer Municipal Code and the Ethics Code, the ethics policy, are fairly silent as to our process and powers. But in general, there's a complaint or an allegation that comes forward. In Palmer, this is initiated by a council member, a mayor, the manager, or the attorney. Then there's an investigation. In Palmer, it's defined via the ethics policy, and that's that the manager or the attorney are tasked with an investigation. There are several other codes around the United States which bring in independent bodies to evaluate investigations or put together teams and hearings. The third step is a hearing or a discussion. This is where the accused council member is allowed to respond to any allegations during a hearing or a council meeting. The Palmer Ethics Policy does not outline a timeline, whether it's confidential, i.e. this is whether it's an executive session, or designate a separate hearing officer for this process. And then sanctions are written out and proposed. They may include formal reprimand, a removal from committees. Palmer doesn't have committees. They can include restrictions on privileges. The Palmer Ethics Code and the PMC are silent to that. Financial penalties, also silent to that, or referrals to law enforcement in cases involving legal violations. Whether or not there's specific allowed sanctions, that is not addressed at all in our policy or in our code. And then that's voted on for a sanction. The council as a whole would then vote on whether or not that's an appropriate sanction, and in Palmer, a majority vote would be required. The next option would be a letter of censure. This is a written document issued by a city council that publicly reprimands a council member for specific behavior or actions which are deemed inappropriate, unethical. Unlike sanctions, censure does not involve any penalties. It's a symbolic act intended to hold the member accountable and send a message to the public. It has 4 processes as well. There's going to be the complaint and allegation, the investigation and review, the drafting of the letter in advance. The formal letter of censure is drafted. It's going to outline the misconduct, the council's disapproval, expectations for accountability, and then it will be placed upon an upcoming agenda where the council as a whole would vote on it. Then a vote would occur, and like sanctions, a majority vote is required to adopt a censure. Then censure is different in that there's a public presentation. The letter of censure is read publicly by the council during a council meeting and entered into public records, serving as a symbolic reprimand. So then the question is removal. Are there circumstances that allow a city council member to be removed, and if so, what are they? So there is no authority for the city council to remove an elected officials for an ethics violation, but elected officials can only be removed by statute under the following circumstances. That's expiration of the term of office, death of the incumbent, resignation if approved by the council, removal from office as provided for law. This is usually a recall election application, loss of eligibility qualifications, for election or appointment, a final conviction of a felony involving moral turpitude or any offense that violates the oath of office, a judicial determination that the incumbent is mentally unfit for office, a decision by a competent tribunal declaring the election void, a failure to take the oath within 10 days, failure to be present in the city for 90 consecutive calendar days unless excused by the council as a whole, conviction of a felony or a misdemeanor as defined in Alaska Statute 1556. That's the section that refers to election offenses, corrupt practices, and penalties. Or a conviction of a violation under Alaska Statute 1513. This is campaign misconduct in the 1st or 2nd degree. Missing 3 consecutive regular meetings without excuse for council, or is no longer physically residing in the council in the city. Then the recall election is the way through law. This is through the power of the people. This has nothing to do with city council. It's not a mechanism or avenue for city council to use. This is solely the power of the people. In Palmer, the city of Palmer respects the sovereignty of our public and our elected officials, and we do not permit elected officials by code to remove one another from office outside of the reasons listed in code, which I just read. So then I wanted to highlight, we have an ethics policy and the Palmer Municipal Code. The difference between code and policy lays within the scope, application, formality, and authority. A code is a formal set of rules that govern behavior or conduct. They are mandatory and enforceable by law. They carry legal authority. A policy is a guideline or a set of principles created by the organization to direct decision making. They're flexible and they provide framework for implementing goals, but they're internal and they don't carry the force of law. A code, Palmer Municipal Code, has more authority than policy. Our ethics, it's called an ethics code of conduct, but it is in essence a policy. It's not a voted on code. It's not in the PMC. So I did have some suggestions going forward, because this has come up a few times procedurally. I wanted to make sure everyone understood the circle and the context for removal, the circle and context for sanction, circle and context for censure. That our ethics policy, I would suggest to the City Council to clarify and amend the ethics policy to match the authorities given in code, meaning it's in conflict with code right now. It requires a majority of council to do an investigation to approve that, whereas code allows for 2 council members to task the attorney, the manager, or the clerk, or for 2 council members to bring forth any item to be placed on the agenda. I'd also suggest at some point and I would be welcome to look into this and give samples, the council would draft a comprehensive ethic and code of conduct to be a part of the Palmer Municipal Code and adopted by the city. This could address the areas where the ethics policy is completely silent. Timelines, definitions, actions, confidentiality, process and procedures, and various responsibilities. Like, for example, Wasilla has the ethics code in their code, not in their policies. And so I hope that answers some of the questions that were asked before, but I just wanted to give those processes an overall review.
Okay. Any questions for the attorney? Councilmember Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Heath, in order for us to put it into our code, the voters would vote on that in October, and then what would the timeline be if we submitted something for the ballot? What would the timeline be to be able to put it in the code? Is that what you're suggesting or not?
We wouldn't have to change wouldn't have to go before the voters, because that would be changing the charter. So as long as nothing's in conflict with the charter, which I don't anticipate it to be, it would be an ordinance, legislation drafted by council, which would just been approved to you and effective immediately.
Thank you.
Upon vote, of course, of the council.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. To our city attorney, is there an update on the investigation into the meeting that I had brought up?
Yes, ma'am. I have received 3 statements on that and spoken with 3 different individuals related to that in support of that. That is going to be a little more complex, and because of the nuances of it, and we would be having witnesses involved should that proceed, I would suggest doing that in an executive session. It's not as cut and dry as something that might be publicly available.
All right. Anything else, Madam Attorney?
Not if, I mean, I have other information or stuff prepared if you have more questions, but.
Okay. All right, next we have audience participation. We have a list, yeah, I think so.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, yes, Councilmember Graver, did I
Did
see
I-
your light? Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did I misunderstand? Do you have more to tell us, or no?
So I have a lot of different resources available in case there was more questions. I mean, I think there was another question in terms of what can the council do in the event what does city councils do in the event a council member is charged with a crime? And then that would reflect back to the sanctions and letter of censure.
Okay.
If I didn't answer that question.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for the city attorney. So, are you suggesting that council members would bring forth something on an agenda then to be voted on by the majority of council if they wanted to follow through with a sanction or a censure?
Well, I'm not suggesting, but your current process does allow for council members, 2 of them, to put forth a letter of censure or a sanction, which was an agenda item on a future agenda to be voted on by the council.
Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. Subsequent to that, if that's brought forward, an investigation is still required, right? So it comes to you, and then it has to be investigated before we take action.
So the ethics policy, so that's where the conflict is between code and policy. The ethics code says if it's related to an ethics violation, and that's a policy. So the ethics policy, which is an agreed upon statement for all of you, it's self-enforcing, says that if there is an investigation solely related to ethics, then it should be investigated and have a majority vote of the council. Palmer Municipal Code states that any 2 members can bring forth an agenda item and place it upon the agenda to be voted on by the council as a whole. So in the place where policy conflicts with code usually code always trumps that different piece. So in essence, there's sort of two pieces gone forward. Now, particularly if you're talking about a letter of censure, because that's basically a statement on behalf of the council. Sanctions, I would think, just for due diligence and due process, probably should have an investigation in advance, just for fairness of it. And certainly all the examples in the lower 48, I've seen that they've done that. There's an element of hearing and stuff, because sanctions involve financial, or removal from a committee, or financial fines, or putting it to the law. It has the force of law with it. A letter of censure is a statement on behalf of the council. It is a non-legal. So it has no force of law with it, and there's no legal ramifications whatsoever, nor is there a statement really of guilt or innocence. It's this is what our opinion is, and we disagree with it. It doesn't imply guilt or innocence in any way.
Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to clarify, on January 28th, I requested council support to ask you to investigate the situation ongoing with one of the council members, and did you have an update on that?
Yes, ma'am, I did. So the question was there in reference to a council member and whether or not there had been charges, and there were in fact 3 charges that have occurred related to that. So that's pretty cut and dry in the sense that, yes, the question was, did that occur? And it did occur, and I do have copies of those court view statements regarding the nuances of those.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Follow up. So are those the results of the investigation that we need to proceed with the possible pursuance of one of those 3 forms of, I guess?
If I recall correctly at the last meeting, the process for an investigation was, did these charges, was a council member charged with a crime? Did that occur? And I can say, yes, that did occur. There were charges, 3 of them that have occurred. So yes, that answers that investigative. I can send that out to council, or I can give you copies of that, but that did in fact occur.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Now audience participation. All right. Council members' rules: protect your right to testify and be heard even if others in the room disagree with you. Council meeting rules also ensure that those attending can express their views if they do not interfere with the rights of others to see and hear the proceedings. At all times, order and decorum will be maintained in keeping with the civility and dignity of the legislative process. Please be respectful during audience participation. No disruptions to city business or threats of any kind will be allowed. Individuals who cannot follow these guidelines will be removed. Any threats against others could result in criminal prosecution. Please sign in, state your name, and you have 3 minutes per person. We're open audience participation. I think we have, thank you. Thanks, Frank. Herb Bischoff. And John Brubaker.
Can you hold the button? Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Go ahead, John.
How's that?
There you go.
All right, my name is Herb Bischoff. I live here in Palmer, and I'm here with my neighbor and friend, John Brubaker. John and I are friends, and we had the opportunity to go visit the restoration site for Engine 557. While we were there, we met Councilmember Hudson. And when we were there, we noticed there was a print on the wall, and so we decided that that was a nice gesture if we could purchase that. So we did, and had it framed, and we're here this evening to present it to the city of Palmer. And I'd like to say that this is on behalf of several community members, and please accept this print in appreciation of the city's ongoing support for the renovation of Engine 557. while not affiliated with the renovation project in any way, we believe your actions contribute to the well-being, livability, and identity of those who live in, do business in, and visit the Palmer area. There were several contributors, including John and myself, including Mike Leaving, Alan Lynn, Cecilia Bradford, and Joanne Franks, who owns the gallery. As you know, she helped with the framing. That's it. When I came, the mayor asked me who I was representing, and I'm not representing anyone. I'm just here, member of the community, as are the rest of the people who contributed. If I may approach the bench, I will.
Actually, now that you call me a bench, I want to get a look. Wow, there you go. That is good.
We, in great jest, because you work so hard on these things, we thought, gosh, I hope they mounted it, hang it in the council chambers, but no, that may not be the best place. But we hope you can find a good place for it.
So we're honored.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Before I leave, I still have a moment. I just wanted to mention regarding the last comments of the council and the attorney's efforts to clarify some of the ethics things. In my working career, I was involved in an international association that I was president of, and during the course of our deliberations over the years, I was tasked with writing the code of ethics. And believe me, while you may think it's easy to say, do good and do right, it's far from easy, and it's very complicated, and it's very, very, very important to do. So I would encourage you to do whatever it is you may need to look at this issue, resolve it, be satisfied with it, and implement it. And all the best. And it's not an easy task, but I do wish you the best in that effort.
Thank you. Linda S.
My name is Linda Spohn. At the last city council meeting, your temporary city manager contradicted himself several times concerning communication between the city council and staff, but he could not give any specific instances. No one seemed to know what he was talking about. I don't think even he knew what he was talking about. He also stated that department heads and staff were not hiding anything, no conspiracies, that they were doing the best to their ability, from librarians to police officers to public works. Everyone is doing their best for the city of Palmer. No one comes here to do a bad job. Well, I disagree. I have been coming to these city council meetings for over a year and a half on behalf of the children and youth of the Palmer area, exposing the corruption going on in the Palmer Library. Your librarian, whose name tag read Beth, has actively promoted and featured obscene, vulgar, perverted, pornographic books and material to youth in the Palmer Library. The age for the young adult section has been lowered to 12 years of age. And the filthy, evil, indecent, vile book Identical is still in the young adult section in Palmer. This obscene book and others have been challenged, shown to you, proved to you, read to you, and we begged you, for the children's sake, to do something about it. The Borough Library Citizens Advisory Committee voted unanimously that there was no redeeming quality, not one sentence in the book Identical. We have all noticed the swift and needed changes that President Trump has already made for our nation in just a few weeks. This takes common sense, foresight, courage, willpower, and integrity. These traits appear to be missing from the Palmer City Council and its temporary city manager. With the exception of Councilmember Hudson, who appears to be the sharpest pencil in the box, you have my encouragement, Councilmember Hudson. Thank you for your service. A quote from Edmund Burke. The only thing necessary for triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Thank you.
Jackie, go for it.
Thank you, City Council and Mayor. My name is Jackie Goforth. I don't know if you're familiar with ChatGPT. It happens to be a large language model artificial intelligence program, and you can put problems or things into it, and it will tell you the answers usually. Well, this was sent to ChatGPT. A city in Alaska wanted a bigger library than the deteriorating building they had that was 40 years old. The building had a flat roof. One winter had record snowfall, and snow accumulated on roofs. Buildings started caving in, and local authorities warned to remove the snow. The city did not. 2 months later, with 4 to 6 feet of snow accumulated on the roof of the library, it collapsed. The city did not have enough insurance in place to completely rebuild the library, so they told the citizens the library was so old it wasn't worth rebuilding. Then the city put a bond initiative on the ballot to rebuild the library. That passed, but they never told the council or the people what the actual damage was or if the library was repairable. Now the city and insurance company are disputing the amount of damage found after the winter because the city did not maintain utilities during the winter. Does this sound like there could be insurance fraud or a crime? And this is what ChatGPT said. Yes, there are several potential legal and ethical issues in this situation that could point to insurance fraud or other wrongdoing. Number one, negligence leading to loss. The city was warned to remove the snow from the roof, but they failed to do so. If the city deliberately ignored the warnings, knowing it could lead to collapse, that could be considered negligence. Misrepresentation of the library's condition. If the city falsely claimed the library was too old to repair, when it may have been repairable, that could be a form of deception. Insurance fraud. If the city is inflating the claim, withholding information, or misrepresenting the extent of the damage, that could be considered insurance fraud. Number 4, a bond initiative without transparency. If the city misled the voters about the true extent of the damage or the need for a new building, that could be an issue of public trust or even fraud. And number 5, failure to maintain utilities. If the city allowed additional damage to occur by failing to maintain utilities, their actions could further complicate the insurance claims and financial responsibility. While intent and specific evidence would be needed to prove fraud or a crime, these actions raise serious concerns. A government oversight body, insurance fraud investigators, or even local taxpayers may have grounds to demand an audit or investigation. And I'm very interested in the last one, as I'm not a local taxpayer because I do not live in the city limits, but trust me, I spend a lot of my paycheck at the grocery stores and at the stores here. Thank you.
Is there anyone else for audience participation? Please start with your name.
My name is Ashley Russell, and I just wanted to take a few moments to come in here and voice my support for interim city manager John. I think he's done a wonderful job. I think that there's a lot that goes unseen in what he juggles here, and I really wanted to make sure that it was noticed by the council that people note he is doing a great job. And also a side note, ChatGPT is a robot. When you put in biased information, you get a biased answer. Anyways, thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Anyone else for audience participation?
Wesley Arts, Palmer Bar. I was thinking about from the last meeting and this one, and one of the things I'm thinking is I think it would be good for you guys to have yearly ethics and municipal code training. This is not targeting any one person up here, but anyone that is sitting on that side should be in it, from the acting city manager, city attorney, to the city clerk, all sitting there with outside people going over ethics training with you guys. where it talks, where after every election, where you guys are learning, going, okay, this is talking about municipal code. This is talking how the city of Palmer looks. I also think this would be a very good time, as you're kind of going over this ethics stuff, to write an ethics code. I'm looking at, our city is growing here, and our form of government has to evolve with it. This isn't a small town anymore. It's becoming bigger and bigger, and we have to grow as a city. But these meetings are supposed to be kind of boring, not with bombshells dropped in them. And I think from the accusations that fly, they should be brought up in a certain order instead of just being dropped on us for everything for the last 3 months, 4 months. But you guys could figure out how to write it out where it's not just dropped out, where you know about the problems and are talking about it amongst yourself. If the Open Meetings Act, if you guys need to ask the state on those, because I think there are times that you guys need to communicate as a group, not necessarily in the public thing, in the public format. The training, I don't think the public needs to be there, but I think it should be filmed and open for the public to watch, where they could submit questions for at the end of each day, and make it like a week-long training course where you guys are all sitting there and can openly ask these questions in the training. I think it would be good for everyone. And then it's good to get an outside, like, legal opinion on something when we're talking about municipal code. But I think all of our codes need to be double checked, not just what gets highlighted. But I was just been thinking about that, and I think it would be good for you guys to have some sort of outside training that all y'all have to be part of. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for audience participation?
Good evening. My name's Mark Spohn, Mayor and Council. I don't even know how to start. I think most people really care about this city, and that's why they're here. But what has taken place here is beyond belief. And I would like to see you put something in where each and every one of you is subject to a lie detector test and come out and say what's gone on with all the shenanigans with not maintaining that structure after it collapsed. I'm talking about the library, not keeping it heated. All these meetings, nobody ever comes up and says, hey, this is how much it's insured for. This is what the insurance company's gonna settle. Oh no, let's just plan a new one. Then you got your architect firm or the designer, whatever the proper name is, comes in and said, oh, changes were made, so scrap those other plans. Come on, anybody that does blueprints or designs buildings, they didn't throw the other design away and say, oh, we can't use that anymore because you authorized me. It's all money coming to these people. How about a lie detector test for each and every one of you? And if you pass, amen. But there's something wrong when you keep all this stuff circulating around. And all we want is a Taj Mahal. And when you have a plan in place and you don't like it, well, let's get them to make another one in secret, what you did with your other manager. And now, then you bring the guy back in and says, oh, too bad, they asked for a change, we're not gonna look at that plan anymore. You had to subpoena his computers. You tell me that he didn't save that? What kind of firm designs something and doesn't save every step of the way? You ever build a building and you make changes? Hey, let's look back at this first part. Maybe that, come on. There's something really stinky going on. And how about some common sense and some honesty? That would probably solve a lot of problems. Thank you.
Anyone else for audience participation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity to stand up and stretch at least after an hour. Mike Malevsky, my name, live here in beautiful downtown Palmer. Like Herb and other people who've spoken to the ethics issue, I've had some experience. I spent 3 years as chair of the Metro Regional Hospital's Ethics Committee. We met monthly. It was a kind of an interesting process at the time. Because the members of that committee included physicians, other healthcare providers, and administrators in the hospital. And when I was offered the opportunity, I said, okay, well, this is going to be pretty easy. And I found that it was not that easy. We brought in a variety of speakers. You may know that some hospitals actually have ethicists, physicians who act in that capacity. Providence had one. We brought her out and had her talk to the issue. And what it became obvious is that very professional people doing very intense work who knew about ethics still had to take a look at what they were doing on a regular basis to say, okay, let's throw out an example of a situation that involves a limited supply of drugs. Who gets them? How do you do that? What do you do with all of that, the pressures associated? And I think I'm going to draw the line to what you're doing is to say an ad hoc ethical violation is not the answer. You may take care of something that is in some terms referred to as an acute situation. But you really have a chronic situation that requires, no matter who we are, or whatever we're doing, we may be a lawyer, we may be someone in IT, it doesn't matter. There's always an ethical component to what you do. And I found that it was a time in my life that I was able to reassess and say, okay, how do I do this? Pay attention, to think about anything that I'm involved in and what's the ethical component in that. And so I just offer that as an example as you move forward, because I think it's going to take a consistent process, not once and done. Not we've got the policy, it's in place now. If we need it, we'll pull it out and use it. That doesn't work too well. So I offer that just as a suggestion. Thank you.
Anyone else for audience participation? Okay, we'll close this audience participation. And why don't we take a break before we get to public hearings? Going back to work?
No. This is one of the things that they've done and that they're trying to cover up right now is that whole thing I tried to escape.
It's like Skynet.
It is Skynet. I have fun with it really watch, but I'm just like, but that's the whole thing. It's like,
It started teaching yourself.
yeah, which is scary.
It is.
And so,
So yeah, I think that I told them about it. They're a little bit too short. They're like, I wear branches. Because 38, yeah, it's like these are live run tests. Like we're here. Even these guys, there's like a high.
He has already
Yes, I.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, it's fair enough.
Yeah.
You're correct. We're not stick together.
I've never seen
I have a child.
What
Recall the council back. Let's see. Is Councilman Best coming? There we go. Okay. And here we are. Get to this. All right, so next we have public hearings. Resolution number 25-010, a resolution of the Palmer City Council amending the budget for the city of Palmer, Alaska for fiscal year ending December 31, 2025, and authorizing the city manager to appropriate funds for additional legal fees. We will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to this resolution can come forward. All right, seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. What's the wishes of the council?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Councilmember Alcantra.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in this resolution, kind of laid out the amount of legal fee money available by department. I don't recall when or if we lowered the airport legal fund from $22,500 to $2,500, but if we did that, I don't recall that amendment, and budget document that I have shows a proposed budget of $22,500, which is what I thought we passed, which would at least make this thing a little less painful if I'm correct. If I'm not correct, if someone could clue me in on when we lowered that amount, because what I showed was last year it was $7,500, and the 2025 budget was $22,500, not $2,500. So I don't know when that changed.
Mr. Manager?
That was a change by the former city manager and myself. Knowing what I know now, if I knew then what I knew now, it would have been $20,000, and that would have been put over into contractual services. That was $20,000 of that money was to go to an appraisal, two appraisals out at the airport. Was what those were for, and then $2,500 was going to be attorney fees.
But
Councilmember Alcantra.
Yeah, follow up. So are you saying then, and maybe you can get Jennifer, are you saying that under 03, 01, 10, 60, 27 under the airport fund, that when we passed our budget, we only passed it with 2,500 instead of the proposed 22,500? I don't recall that amendment coming before council, and I don't recall that change being made.
Mr. Manager?
The change wasn't made. It was budgeted for $22,500, and the intent was for $20,000 of that to be put towards two different appraisals at the airport. In my mind, as the airport manager, that was a legal expense. So I guess you could say that was mislabeled, misbudgeted, or whatnot. That was my mistake.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quick comment and then also a question for the city attorney and the city manager. My first comment is, I was really confused, backing up what Councilman Alcantra said, because when I was looking also at the red line document that the council requested during budget passing time, that wasn't something that I saw on there as a redlined amendment to our budget, that we were changing the legal fees for the airport to be over $22,000, so that was extremely concerning. I was going to ask our city attorney if she reviewed the original resolution before it was placed on our agenda, and if she reviewed the revised resolution also before it was added to the agenda. Thank you.
Madam Attorney?
No, I didn't draft a review resolution number. We're talking about 2501 no. The one that was put on the original one that was put in the packet, I had a couple of edits that I sent in, and then they made some other changes and put it back on the packet. But no, I didn't draft it.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my understanding that the city attorney should be reviewing all of our resolutions and amendments before they're added to the agenda packet. So I'm just left super confused as to why one regarding her pay was not reviewed, why it was allowed to go on the agenda without her input. Also, I don't recall ever seeing in past agendas that our city attorney's contract was added into the agenda. So I just was wanting clarification on that as well.
Mr. Manager?
It's common practice for the city with all of our contracts to do an action memorandum. And the change in the contract should have been passed through council in an action memorandum so we can track the changes in the contract. So that you can expect to see that in upcoming legislation. Does that answer the question?
Councilmember Hudson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the city manager, it doesn't quite answer my question. I'm just really confused as to why the city attorney wasn't given ample time to review the resolution that was placed on the agenda packet. Even the second time around, there should have been ample time for her to review that before it was placed before us. And again, I just don't understand why her contract was added into the agenda packet if no other city attorney's contract has ever been put in our agenda packet prior. If it's not in the city manager's purview to do anything regarding the attorney or the clerk's office, and that's under the city council. So what I'm getting at specifically is what council members asked for this resolution to be put on the agenda.
Mr. Manager?
This resolution is a budget resolution. What it does is the amount allocated to pay the contract for the city attorney is not enough. So what we need to do is we need to take money from the general fund and to be able to pay the funds for the year. So all this is, it's a simple budget amendment resolution.
Councilmember Alcantara?
With the simple budget resolution, with the attachment of the agreement that we have now with Heath Law LLC, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and just so folks know, you can find it on page basically 96 through 99 of the packet if you go through the whole thing. What we did was implement a $120,000 flat rate for the year with our current city manager. I was sort of unaware that it was going to be only for 1 year, one calendar year, basically from January 1st, 2025 till December 31, 2025. And at the time, I thought, and I'm still searching for the answer. I think what I heard the city manager say is that the 20,000 extra that I thought was in the airport fund doesn't exist. So is that a correct answer? There really is a 91.5, not a 111.5. I just heard something about we're going to do these two studies or different things, but I didn't hear it say like, hey, that money is not in that budget line. That money exists somewhere else. If that money is in that budget line, that means we have 111,500. That's the way I look at that. You know, other things can be brought back forward or go into the engineering line or in some other service line. Does that money exist, the 22,500? That's the answer I'm looking for.
Mr. Manager?
The money exists, but there were different purposes allocated for it.
But it was allocated into legal fees, correct?
It was allocated in the legal fees line item, yes, sir.
Thank you. So there's $111,500 available in legal fees budget lines.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Correct?
thank you.
And Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Best.
just for the record, Mr. Alcantara, you said the contract with the manager, you meant the contract with the attorney.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay,
Sorry.
just clarification.
Okay. Councilmember Alcantara.
I'm trying to determine if in the resolution itself or is it just in the backup where we need to make those adjustments, to say that there's 111,000, I guess it's on page 95. That should be changed to airport 22,500, which means that the amount we're appropriating today should be changed to 18,500. So if I need to make that amendment, Mr. Mayor, to say we're to change that budget line to 18,500, if that's what I have to
Actually,
do.
I think I was gonna suggest that maybe we consider postponing this to the next meeting, because if we're saying there's the 20,000 whatever in there, then that means there's a shortage for whatever the other purpose was, so I guess I'm suggesting maybe we postpone this to the next meeting to let it get ironed out in a more complete manner. Councilmember Hudson? Oh, Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So is that going to affect, again, our city attorney's pay? Or
Good question. Mr. Manager?
if we postpone this?
No, it is not. It's, we have enough money in the council's budget to get us through a few months. So we can work for a couple of months, but this resolution does need to be made at some point in the near future, so we can make sure there's money in the budget to pay the fee.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes, thank you. I would like to second what Councilman Alcantara said, that we amend the airport line item from 2,500 to 22,500, and that we amend the additional appropriation amount. It's very clear that that was passed in our budget, and that's what the number is, and that we amend those things like we typically do in a council meeting, and then we vote on the matter.
Councilmember Cooper?
Thank you, Mayor. It might be some misunderstanding that I have this $22,000 that was listed originally in the budget. $20,000 of that was meant for appraisals. And so what it means to me is that the $20,000 was probably put in the wrong line item under legal fees because they thought that it was a legal thing that we had to do for an appraisal. And we still have the requirement for the two $10,000 appraisals out there. So we don't have literally $22,000 because $20,000 of that needs to be appropriated for two appraisals that we have at the airport.
Okay, actually now Councilmember Hudson had made a motion. Can you repeat that motion? See if we can get a second.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I was just making a motion that we amend the what's the airport line item on here as to what it represents in the budget, which is 22,500, and that then we amend the additional appropriation to 18,500, and that we move to vote on this resolution.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Alcantara, you want to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kind of for the benefit of my other council member, if I understand. If there was a mistake made in the budgeting process that has to be fixed down the road so we can do appraisals and other things, let's fix that down the road. We passed a budget that said $22,500 in legal fees for the airport fund. That's the money we need to try to get closer to this contract. If there's something we need to fix in April, June, August, because it got put in a wrong line, let's fix that when the time comes. That's my opinion. Let's fix what's wrong today, and let's fix what happened to be put in erroneously when we need to down the road. Thank you.
Councilmember Best.
I just would like to ask this question of the manager. Has the appraisal been already requested and it is in process or any of that kind of stuff? By us not having the funds there, is that going to push back anything?
Mr. Manager?
The appraisal's not been requested yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to disrespect the 2-question rule. I do have another question, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
My question is not meant as a rhetorical question. It's an actual question, so excuse me if it sounds rhetorical. So I'm wondering why it was put in here that it was the airport legal fees were $2,500 if in the budget they were $22,500. Was that just a misprint?
Mr. Manager.
They were put in there because 2,500 of that was intended for attorney fees, and 20,000 of that was intended to go towards appraisals.
Okay, are we ready to vote on the amendment? Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
I have a
Oh,
quick- I have a
sorry,
question, sir.
Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you. So just by changing the airport fee from 2,500 to 22,500, does that necessarily change the legislation creates expenditure in amount of 38,500? We still need 38,500 regardless of the fact that we have another $20,000 because it says that an additional appropriation of 38,500 from the mayor, council, city clerk, legal items necessary to cover the cost of the attorney's annual fee. So we still have a requirement of $38,500 to pay for the, regardless of where it comes from. Am I missing that?
Mr. Manager?
So the way that the attorney's fees are structured is what they're currently done this last year is that it was done by actual hours. So 1 hour of service went and that invoice went to that department, it was paid. The way that we're gonna be moving forward is more or less the same. There's gonna be a monthly report submitted by the city attorney, and that will be probably back billed either quarterly or annually. We're still wrestling with how we back bill each department, but because each department is still budgeted for a line item, and it's just a budget. So if our public works department ends up in a lawsuit and they talk to the city attorney a whole bunch, their fee is going to be larger, and it's possible for them to go over their budget. Whereas if the airport uses the attorney very, very minimally, it could go below budget. So it's each department director budgets looking ahead, trying to think of how much time they're going to spend with the city attorney. And so to put a $22,500 budget item on the airport is kind of artificially inflating it, because it's unlikely that the airport is going to use $22,000 of legal services. That's just the nature of the airport. So if you put the money in there and it doesn't get used, then it's artificially been inflated, and it's not reflecting of how the money is actually going to be spent.
Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry for the second question. That doesn't, that doesn't, I guess, answer my question. Do we need $38,500 to increase the fee for the attorney?
Yes, sir, we do.
And so regardless of whether the fee is $22,500 or $2,500, we still need $38,500 from all those accounts. Thank you.
Good.
Councilmember Alcantara.
With all due respect, that's not correct. With the 20,000 from the airport, you'll have 111.5. This doesn't matter. I mean, if she does $80,000 worth of work for the mayor, council, and clerk, we're gonna have to find it to pay her from some other budget line. The situation is, if we do the amendment as proposed to the 111.5, then we have to increase it 18,500, not 38,500. And the 18,500 will give us the 10,000 buffer and get us only $8,500 away from being able to pay our attorney for the year. So the budget request should really be changed to 18,500, not 38,500, because the impact is 18,500. The budget was passed with 22,500 for the airport legal fees. And I will point out that in 2022, it was 13,300. In 2023, it was 11,700. 22,500 didn't seem that outrageous, and that's why we passed that budget line. I didn't hear any discussion about other things going into the legal fee line. I didn't hear any discussion during the budget process about, hey, we're gonna do these studies, we're gonna do these other things. No, it was passed as that budget line, and so we only need to pass an additional $18,500. Thank you. Done a few budgets in my day.
Are we ready to vote on the amendment?
Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make a quick comment. My ears kind of perked up when you mentioned about the back billing. I just want to make sure that the council directives are being worked with the attorney on billing, and it's not going to be something where she has to not go without pay for a couple of months because we're changing the terms of the contract. I just want to make sure that's clear.
That's
Mr.
clear.
Manager.
It's, the bill will be paid on the second contract day of the second contract paying period of the month. It's gonna be a routine, there's not gonna be anything.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay,
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This might be a stupid question, but just for clarity for myself. So if we don't change this at all, that 20,000 is still set aside for the airport. It's just not included on here. So where would that 20,000 be coming from, if I'm understanding this correctly? To the manager, if that's through the mayor.
Mr. Manager?
If it stayed like it was, you're saying if it stays just like it's presented, then all it is an additional, I don't have the number sitting in front of me, the additional amount would be allocated from the unallocated general fund to be able to cover the fee. Gina, could I ask you to come up and explain this to us, please?
Welcome, Gina.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yes, if we left it as is, it would come from unassigned fund balance, but technically there was $99,000 in the black at the end of the 2025 budget that you guys passed, so it would just change that from 99 down to 79,000.
Okay. Councilmember Best?
Yeah, I have a question. So from a standpoint from finance and your reporting structures and budgeting and all that kind of stuff, is what is presented the easiest solution that you see for us to go through to properly track all this stuff in the reporting and all that kind of stuff? Or is there another process that you think we should maybe massage a little bit?
It's kind of an interesting scenario. And every month is going to be different based on the number of hours that we are billed for. So, although it's a flat fee every month, one month we might get billed for 30 hours, we might get billed for 40 hours, one month we might get billed for 50 hours. Did you?
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And please excuse me if I'm mistaken, but my understanding was that this was moving to essentially a flat fee for the. So if she works 70 hours versus 10 hours, we're still getting the same.
It doesn't matter.
The same invoice amount.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Just want to make sure. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So when you bill that though, when you bill it 1 month, like if it's 70 hours, or if it's 50 hours, that's $200 an hour.
If I may jump in real quick, there's two forms of billing here. So there's the billing where the attorney bills the city, and that's a flat fee paid to the attorney. And then there's another billing where that amount now has to get spread out to the departments as the departments have used the, have worked with the attorney. And there's an hourly bill that the attorney submits, and that hourly bill is spread out accordingly to the different departments. As to, it has to, or, you know, we're working on a way to be able to bill this to the city right now. And as you can see, it's still a work in progress.
So if you would like to table this and bring it, we can bring it back later, once the dust kind of settles, and we can do that, as was suggested by the mayor.
Madam Attorney?
I just wanted to offer some clarification. I appreciate the manager. So whatever internal allocations that they do for their budgeting is separate, but for the public's view, this was a flat fee. I offered the city an extra 200 free hours in essence. That would indeed lower my hourly rate to, so there's a flat annual rate that was based on contract, that was the minimum, and then that allowed me to be able to take on extra projects, whether it's the library or the police or different things, and ultimately offer another 200 hours for those up to 250 hours or so at that same rate. So I'm internally then taking a significant paycheck for the pay cut for those hours, and however the city would like to distribute those internally, but the hourly rate drops, not increases. And so it's a range of hours on a flat fee that allows me to do a monthly invoice directly to the council and maintains the checks and balances of manager, attorney, and so forth. Just wanted to clarify that since everyone's discussing things and that's involving me.
Okay. Councilmember Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Making it a real difficult, all we really need to do is put the legal money in a legal pot and get as close as we can to paying our attorney. We'll learn for the next fiscal year that we won't spread it out over 9 departments. We'll have one budget line that says this is what we're gonna pay the city attorney. We don't care if she does 20 hours at public safety, 20 hours at with the council, 20 hours at the airport. We're just gonna pay her the flat 120. Right now, we're at 111.5 in legal, and we need another 8,500 plus another 10,000 to have a buffer. I'm totally for that. I suggest we pass the amendment, pass this resolution, and move on with it and let the billings fall where they may. I mean, I agree that 1 month it might be 50 hours, 1 month 70. And if we go to the max of 750, then we're gonna get a bargain. If we stop at 560, then we're not gonna get the same bargain. But we're making it much more difficult than it needs to be. All we need to do is keep our legal fees separate where they're supposed to be and realize we have 111.5 to pay a bill that we've already decided is 120 for the year, and pass an additional 18,500. Let's not move money here, there, and yon so we can say, oh, we're gonna do 38.5 here and then leave this money over here so it could pay for something else. It was budgeted in legal fees. Let's use it to pay our attorney, and then we will cross that bridge when we get there to what we have to do with the other money. But let's not make this more difficult than it needs to be. We just need to pass the amendment, make it 111.5 and 18,500 more tonight. And let's just do it tonight and get on with it. Thank you.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you. I also wanted to piggyback off of what Councilman Alcantara just said. We didn't, the council didn't request to see monthly line items of who was using legal, fees here and there hourly so that it could be tracked within the system. It was so that we could make sure at the end of the year that those where the hours were for it was for the council. So I'm not sure how this is going back into the system. It's just one line item for the city. This is how much comes out of the budget every year. And she has a minimum amount of hours, and she took a pay cut doing this for us. So I'm not sure why this is an argument.
All right, are we ready to vote on the amendment? Councilmember Best.
This is just a quick comment. For future, when we have contracts that are annual contracts, maybe we might have those end and be, like in October. So then we have those hard numbers. Then when we go into budgets, to finalize our budget, then we would have everything. So we're not having to try to catch up afterwards. Just a thought for later on.
Madam Attorney.
Oh, I just wanted to remind the council, I don't believe that there was any discussion regarding an end date in the amendments in public after the performance review. So I believe the manager put forth the December 31st end date, which I'm fine with that because I believe that's the end of the fiscal year, if I understand that correctly. But if so, then I just want to clarify that that doesn't automatically void the contract. The amendment would expire and require then a new performance review. It doesn't void the original contract by an expiration of date.
Madam Clerk, can you call the roll on the amendment?
Yes. Councilmember Best.
No.
Councilmember Graver.
Yes.
Mayor Carrington.
No.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper.
No.
Okay, any more discussion on the actual resolution 25-010? All right. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll on the amended resolution.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Councilmember Best.
Yes.
Councilmember Graver.
Yes.
Mayor Carrington.
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right. Next, we have action memorandum number 25-020, authorizing city manager to purchase a new patrol vehicle and equipment in the amount of $71,532 and to purchase the vehicle under the governmental and proprietary procurements section of Palmer Municipal Code 3.21.230 by attaching to the State of Alaska contract. What's the wishes of the council?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, everybody wants this one.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Yeah, everybody wants this one. This is a good thing, beautiful thing. I just want to give kudos out to the chief and the police department. My recollection from our meeting at the depot was that these vehicles were going to come in the $80,000 to $85,000 range a piece, and because of the work working with the state, and I'm sure because of work working with the contractor in Wasilla, this was able to come in around $71,000 and change. So kudos for that. It looks like quite the vehicle, and look forward to seeing it out on the streets.
Any other questions or comments? Madam Clerk, if you could, sorry,
Sorry,
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question. I know that we're in the process of doing a radio swap out. Are these, I'm assuming these are going to come with the new radios?
Mr. Manager? You want
Radios
the chief?
are ordered separately, and then we already have the radios in stock that we're going to be installing in the vehicles.
Okay, so those are ones that are going to need to be looked at swapping out later. Is that correct?
They are already the new.
Oh, they are, okay.
Yeah, we've acquired the radios that we need through grant funding already.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Is that correct, Chief?
Yeah, we already have the radios, and our current fleet have already been in the process of being switched over. All the new ones will have the new radio.
All right. All right, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please, for action memorandum number 25-020.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Yes.
Councilmember Best.
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Yes.
Mayor Carrington.
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes.
Councilmember Graver.
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right, there's no unfinished business, no new business. Record of items placed on the table. Madam Clerk?
Interview questions from the interim city manager.
All right. Next, we have audience participation. We'll open audience participation. Anyone wishing to speak to the council? I believe we have a sign-in sheet there.
My name is Linda Spohn. I want to add that the Borough Library Citizens Advisory Committee met last night, and several on the committee stated that reading the obscene books traumatized them, that they weren't sure how much more they could take, or if they could continue on the committee, that they needed to decompress. But Palmer has these books on the shelf in the Palmer Library for children, starting at age 12. These are mature adults on this advisory committee. What would this evil, vile, obscene content do to a child? You care about restoring a train engine, which is fine, I like history. You report on a sister city which affects almost no taxpayers, but it's nice, I guess. You tell us how many businesses participate in giving out candy at Halloween, but you completely ignore children being exposed to vulgar pornography in your city library. This is dark and evil behavior on the part of the city council. You could follow the same policies that President Trump is already putting in place, or you could be losing federal funding for all the DEI, LGBTQ, transgendering ideology in your library, not to mention the obscene pornographic material. I beg you, do the right thing for the children's sake. Thank you.
Anyone else for audience participation?
Hello again, it's Jackie Goforth. You know, when you're at your parents' side taking care of end-of-life care, a lot of things go through your head and you just ignore it. Like the books that are still available for children and things like the American Library Association already has ignored rules to protect children. The Child's Internet Protection Act of 2000, they completely ignored. They let children on the internet, and the USA had to actually take them to the Supreme Court in 2003 to get it to stop. That's what the librarians are like. And then you, things like Giuseppe Fiorelli, who was the architect who found the pockets of air in the mud and ash from Pompeii and Herculaneum. Remember him? Remember how they poured plaster in there and they had all of those forms that are in the museum? Well, they've discovered now, last year they did a scientific examination of the DNA. Somebody decided to see if those plaster things had DNA in them. And some of them were, they thought they were family units, man, woman, child. Some of them, they thought they were embracing couples. No, they came out, they were all male. Which just shows you that after almost 2,000 years, that was 79 AD, 2,000 years degrading your DNA in plaster, your DNA will still tell whether you're a male or female. Okay? So the fact that Trump has said there's no such thing as gender switching and you can't be anything but male or female is an absolute fact. But you know, all of that, just, you know, you still have to come home and you still have to gather signatures for a petition, and there's just, that doesn't seem to really have much impact. But you know, when you get out there in Palmer, you realize how small it is and how beautiful it is and how wonderful it is and how calm it is and what a lovely little downtown we have. And we can't possibly compete with the borough libraries and with Wasilla because they have the huge tax base to support that. And that comes with the huge traffic and huge problems, people problems, in order to support that library. You are putting a huge burden on the very small residents of Palmer with $700-something a year. I only hope it comes in much less than that, and I hope somebody finds out why there's such a shady thing going on and we still don't know what's going on. I mean, as a citizen, I would like to have a tax audit, an audit of what was going on. I want to know what the original estimation of fixing that building was and who made it and when it was done. Why doesn't somebody require that? But anyway, thank you so much for listening to me. And you realize when you watch a parent pass away that all this stuff is just what they call noise. It really is. It's just noise. Thank you for listening.
Anyone else for audience participation?
All right, I'll bite. So my name is Frank Bell.
Earlier tonight, ChatGPT was referenced and utilized as a reliable source of information, which, to be frank, it's not. So just for kicks here in the last few minutes, I asked ChatGPT, do librarians have a secret agenda to corrupt children? Its answer, librarians are not motivated by a desire to corrupt children, but rather by a commitment to providing access to information and promoting critical thinking and intellectual freedom. They work to create a safe and welcoming environment for all members of their community, regardless of age, background, or beliefs. Librarians are guided by a set of professional ethics and values that emphasize the importance of intellectual freedom, confidentiality, and social responsibility. The idea that librarians have a secret agenda to corrupt children is not supported by evidence. In fact, librarians are subject to strict professional standards and guidelines that prohibit them from promoting any particular ideology or agenda. Their primary goal is to provide access to information and support the educational and recreational needs of their community. Librarians are also committed to protecting the rights of children and ensuring that they have access to a wide range of materials and resources that are suitable for their age and developmental level. Conclusion. In conclusion, the answer to the question of whether librarians have a secret agenda to corrupt children is no. Librarians are professionals who are dedicated to providing access to information and promoting literacy and education in their communities. They are guided by a set of professional ethics that values that emphasize the importance of intellectual freedom, confidentiality, and social responsibility. So there's your ChatGPT to the answer to that question. Thanks.
Is there anyone else for audience participation?
Mayor and Assembly, this is Mark Spone. If you put garbage in a bag, guess what you're gonna get when you take it out? You're gonna get some more garbage. I don't know anything about this kind of chat and stuff. I'm not a computer guy, but it's based on what you ask it. So if you form your questions a certain way, you're gonna get the results that gentleman asked for. So just think about that. But why don't you talk to the police chief you gave some what do you say call it, some awards tonight, telling people what a good job they're doing. Do you know what influences people? How did these people commit the crimes they commit or get into the violence they get? What led them to that? Think about that. Could it be the books they're reading at a very young age? There was a thing in the People's paper a long time ago, 6 months ago, said the largest addiction in the world is pornography. And it had all the statistics where that came from. But we're afraid to do something about it in Palmer. When you see all kinds of things go on in this country with shootings and murders, and I mean, I can't even name them all. How did those people get influenced that way? Think about what they're reading. And they have the right to go on the internet or go to a private bookstore. They can buy whatever they want. But is that proper use of taxpayer dollars to have that stuff for them? All this, I was at a meeting today and they said there's tons and tons of stuff put out for kids, how to transgender and how to do all this stuff. There was a gal, I can't remember her name, came up here this year and spoke because she'd been mutilated by doctors and now she regrets it happening. How did all this get in their head? But the lady also pointed out there's almost no information in these libraries to keep a child from doing that. But they're flooded with how to do it, but there's nothing to keep them from doing it. God bless President Trump. He's trying to do a tremendous job. And I think we should be right there in this city, in this state, saying, how can he's leading by example. What can we do to straighten this stuff out? But if you corrupt the minds of youth, how are you going to uncorrupt it? Just think about that. And taxpayer funds are being used to do that. Thank you.
Anyone else for audience participation?
evening, Mayor and Assembly, City Council folks. Forget where I'm at for a moment. My name is David Wilson. I'm a city resident of the city of Wasilla. I'm also a recovering public figure. And first, I just want to say thank you guys for what you do. I've never met a public official in the state that gets elected to do their constituents harm, and I believe everyone who serves is trying to do the best for their constituency. And so whether you're a paid public servant or a volunteer or semi-paid public servant, it's a hard job, and just want to say thank you for that. In my official role, I serve as a public policy director of the Mat-Su Health Foundation. Just a brief update, Mat-Su Health Foundation is a shares ownership of the Mat-Su Hospital here, 35%, and with that mission, they invest that share of those profits back into the community through grants, scholarships, partnerships with local organizations, and policy change. In this role, we've been meeting with of the cities, the Tri-Cities, and hopefully trying to get on your schedules and to see how the Mat-Su Health Foundation and City of Palmer can partnership to do some great good for this community. We'll be here, myself or other members of the Mat-Su Health Foundation, just to see and answer questions. So if you guys do have questions on how we can partner and work together to just for the health and well-being of our Mat-Su borough, please don't hesitate to reach out and call. And thank you guys again for what you do, and hope everyone has a wonderful night.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for audience participation? Okay. We'll close audience participation. We've got an executive session coming up, but first we'll have council member comments. Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing for the good of the order this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I first want to express my sincere gratitude to this community and Deputy Mayor Tudor and our local fire and police department for their support and presence Saturday night at A Night to Remember. Their efforts made the evening truly memorable. I also want to say a special thanks to Stan and their team at Country Cuts for providing my brother with an exceptional experience as he prepared for his first prom. It was a true blessing to be a part of such a wonderful celebration and to share in the joy of dancing with everyone in our community. So thank you, everybody who made that night possible, if I forgot you. It really was a touching night for my brother. My husband thought he would never have that experience with his brother, so that was really great, so thank you. I also wanted to say that as a council member, I am deeply concerned about the events surrounding the library roof collapse, and I do feel it's important to tell my constituents what I have recently learned. They have expressed concerns regarding actions taken by city officials and potential violations of trust that may have occurred throughout this process. After reviewing the timeline and noting several inconsistencies, I do believe it is necessary to bring forward concerns as they raise reasonable questions about the handling of the situation. One of the most pressing issues is the role of the interim city manager. While the interim city manager has stated multiple times that he is uncomfortable making major decisions without a permanent city manager in place, it is concerning that the library issue was still brought before the council during the transitional period. This raises questions among constituents about motivations behind these decisions and whether there are external pressures influencing the process. We must ask ourselves whether moving forward with this issue without stable leadership is truly in the best interest of the community. Another concern involves the handling of insurance matters related to the library. There is a significant confusion regarding the insurance payout, with numbers ranging from $2.5 million to $6 million, but these figures have not been fully confirmed or disclosed to the public or to the council. Meanwhile, estimates for rebuilding the library have increased to $16 to $18 million. This discrepancy calls into question the accuracy of the information being presented to the council and the public. The community quickly approved a $10 million bond for a library rebuild, but there was still no clear accounting of the insurance payout or a full breakdown of the costs. Why are these crucial details not being fully disclosed? The continued use of executive session to address this issue only adds to uncertainty. This situation raises concerns about potential mismanagement, as many wonder if the scope of damage was exaggerated to secure funding for a new library that may have not been entirely necessary. There are also questions about how the library bond was presented to voters. Initially, the bond was framed as the only solution, but the scope of the project has expanded far beyond what was originally communicated. The bond, which was presented as funding for a new library, now appears to cover significant alterations and expansions that were not a part of the original plan. This change in scope raises concerns about whether voters fully understand what they were approving. The push to get a $10 million library bond onto the ballot, despite the lack of verified damage estimates and a clear insurance payout, raises red flags. It seems that decisions were made without necessary due diligence, which may have been influenced by a desire to secure funding for a project that in hindsight may have not been as urgent as initially presented. The structural analysis that surfaced only recently, this summer, revealed that repairing the damage to the library may have been possible for under $5 million, which was not shared with voters before the bond was placed on the ballot. Furthermore, it was not made clear that the bond would include community development space within the library, an expansion that involves additional taxpayer funds. This shift in scope should have been communicated to the public more clearly, as it impacted their decision to support the bond. During recent discussions about the design, it has become apparent that certain individuals may have known about the expansion of the library space, which was neither initiated nor approved by the council. We now have documentation that shows the community development director requesting this expansion, with the former city manager aiding and facilitating it. Is it possible the current interim city manager is aware of these details, as community development is currently situated at the airport, and an expansion to the airport may involve moving community development? If so, why not just tell the constituents that? In addition, why is the focus so heavily on the library and community development, while other critical infrastructure such as our police station and aging city buildings have been left out of the conversation? This raises questions about whether the city's priorities are being properly balanced and whether the full scope of the city's needs is being considered by our community developer. As council members, our responsibility is to represent the constituents, not city employees. We must ensure that their concerns are heard and that we are acting in the public's best interest. If there has been any mishandling of information or misrepresentation to voters, it is our duty as a council to address it swiftly and responsibly. The people of Palmer deserve better than what we have seen so far. It is time for this council to step up, to start asking tough questions, and to demand transparency at every level. I want to make it clear that I do believe a nice, developed library is important for our city, but not at the expense of potentially misleading public or mishandling information and funds. Many constituents have asked that we hold off on making permanent decisions about the library until a permanent city manager is in place to oversee these developments. And I do support and will continue to honor the request. My priority is to serve the constituents and the people of Palmer and to ensure that decisions made reflect their best interests rather than the interests of individuals who may not have the city's long-term well-being in mind. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to give a little background on what's going on here with what I'm going to say. So about 2 weeks ago, there was a letter that was published on the city website and Facebook page about a meeting that was being discussed for an executive session for the hiring process. And I had a little issue with that. So I emailed the mayor and I asked, hey, can we please have a one-to-one meeting, following city code to discuss this grievance that I had, and out of making sure that we don't have an issue with the Open Meetings Act, he asked that I speak at this publicly here now. So that's what I'm doing. So with the letter that was written, I had two issues with it. One is that it was posted on the official city Facebook page and the city website. There was a big red banner that said mayor's ruling on emergency meeting. And to me, this did not seem like the right approach to handle this. It seemed like this could have been handled with a phone call, probably from the clerk's office, to clarify the intention and what was being asked. It just seemed like it just added to political drama, especially because the contents of the letter did portray a council person in a negative light. It just did not seem appropriate for official city resources to be used for that. And my main issue was just that the mayor's office had ruled that the meeting that was requested by council was invalid. To me, this is dangerous. We just cannot have that being under one person to be able to decide what meetings are valid and what meetings are not, and when we can have a meeting and when we can't. To me, it's just dangerous to do that, because we're setting a precedence in my mind for this. And it's important that we have the ability for future city councils to be able to call meetings when the council sees fit. There may be a time in the future where we get a mayor that's not acting in the best interest of the community, that the city council needs to have an emergency meeting on, and we need to keep that option open to follow city code. And again, I just wanted to articulate this, nowhere in city code does it give the ability to rule whether or not a meeting is invalid or to cancel requested meetings is given to any one person, the mayor or anyone else otherwise. But I always like to have a light at the end of the tunnel, right? How can we move forward on this? And so I think a lot of this can come down to training, and a lot of it can come down to what Wes was referring to with coming together and working this out. And so what I would like to ask for is for council support for all of us to have what's going to be a long meeting, so it might need to be on a Saturday, within a month or 2 months of the hiring of the new city manager, for all of us to come together and do training in things like the Open Meetings Act, basis of parliamentary procedure, the city code and charter. And I'd like this training to be done by our city clerk and the city attorney, and hopefully someone from the Alaska Municipal Leagues as well that can be here if possible to help with this training. I think this is going to be a really good thing for our council to help bring us closer together, have us understand what the rules are, what we're allowed to do, and also just ask questions, have a Q&A session so we can understand, not just from like the new council persons, but also those who've been on here for a long time. I would love for this to be policy later on to take place within a month of the elections that take place, but I'm getting a little bit outside of the scope of what I'm asking for with my ask. So what I'm asking for, just to clarify, is for us to have a meeting within a month of 2 months, of hiring of the new city manager, for all of us to do this mandatory training together. This could be a really good opportunity for us to just work better together as a council so we can better serve the community.
I support that.
I support that.
Thank you.
All right, and that support to essentially, so we say, direct the clerk to work on arranging that.
Yeah, and it's right. It's a little open-ended, obviously, because we have to wait. You know, what I was thinking, if we schedule that after the new city manager is hired, that might be a good opportunity, because then we can all kind of do a crash course together.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, big thanks to Officer Ogden and the entire Palmer Police Department for diffusing situations. Sometimes that's the most important part of police training, is knowing how to react in situations and not escalate to serious problems. On another note, Officer Ogden's son is one of the 5 lucky folks going to Soroma in June, along with my daughter. So I have gotten to meet his son just in the last year or so. And I think he's also heading over there to Soroma, so that's cool. Next week, I know there's a number of us going to Alaska Municipal League. It'll be my first time down there in a couple of years, but I do think it's important to go not only address new legislators and our current lawmakers, but to go and be present and learn from other municipalities and leaders that are down there. So I look forward to a couple of days in Juneau, being able to not just attend the agenda of the Alaska Municipal League, but also making it up to the Capitol, talking to our lawmakers that represent Palmer, but also other ones as well. So I think that's very important. I thank everybody who testified tonight. You know, it takes, always takes courage to jump up and get yourself in front of a microphone and say your piece. So I appreciate everybody that does it on any of myriad of issues that we have going on, and certainly we have a lot. I want to align myself with the remarks of Councilmember Hudson, just trying to get to peel back the layers of the onion and get to the bottom of what's going on. I never envisioned 2 years after the roof collapse, we'd be sitting here trying to move the ball a little further down the field. I mean, it's not even 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It seems like, we go 2 yards down the field and 1 yard back, and we haven't really gotten very much further than we were almost 24 months ago. I appreciate Councilmember Tudor bringing forward that great suggestion of us all having training within 60 days of a new city manager being hired. I think that's going to help us get to a much more positive and better place together. And I also thank Senator Wilson, once a senator, always a senator, for showing up tonight in his new role. And I'll try not to hold it against him too much that he's a Wasilla resident, but appreciate him making the time to come over here, be present, and to make some comments. Definitely appreciated that. So everybody, I don't know how long we'll be here tonight, but I hope everybody has a good evening and rest of your week, and look forward to our next meeting on the 25th of February. Thanks.
Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to start by saying congratulations to Cindy Rao on receiving the Golden Heart Lifetime Achievement Award presentation. I'm just jealous that I didn't nominate her first. She's wonderful and she 100% deserves that. So I also wanted to say I agree with Deputy Mayor Tudor on pretty much everything he said. I too was really troubled by the weird response and unethical, in my opinion, to the, I don't know, I feel like it could have been handled a lot better and communicated a lot better with that meeting that was deemed invalid. I also wanted to thank Councilwoman Hudson for her comments regarding the library. There's a lot of that I could back up, and I can't explain how frustrated I am by the whole situation, especially because I, as a part of the library planning committee, was not included in any of that, and it was news to me shortly after the firing of our previous city manager. And I am committed to getting to the bottom of whatever's going on with that. I don't know exactly what that is, but if we need to make steps to discuss it or have an executive session regarding those issues, I'm completely supportive of that. I also just wanted to mention, and I'm sure the rest of the council agrees with me on this, that we stand in support we grieve with our community with the plane crash in Nome. That was just a devastating event, and my husband was part of the team that went to go recover the lost there in Nome, and it was just an awful situation. So we're praying for the families in the community of those who are lost. Thank you.
Councilmember Best.
Thank you for that remembrance. I knew one of those that was a teacher that had worked with my wife for many years, and the husband of her I have worked with side by side for 10 years. Outstanding people. As I understand, reading through some of the stories of those that perished to a person, every single one of them was just solid people. My heart hurts for them all. Kind of hard to get past that. We've had some things stated tonight about the ruling of the mayor and also the calling of an emergency meeting. And I will ask everybody to review the code, because as I have reviewed the emails in the requesting of, from the deputy mayor, a special meeting, and the request from Councilwoman Hudson was an emergency meeting. These are two separate types of meetings, and per our code, a special meeting needs to have a second, and neither one of them seconded either one of their requests. So we have two individual council members calling for two separate types of meetings. And this is actually by code. It's not a combination of, you don't get to mash them together when you're on Facebook. And the misinformation and accusations is where we have to stop. Take a breath. What was the emergency need for the meeting?
Here we are debating on having meetings on Friday or 2 weeks from now. But what was the emergency need at that moment to call an emergency meeting? I still don't see a reason for the emergency of the meeting. And then we also have convoluted understandings of how our code reads, and then accusations get thrown around. And this is where we are continuing to just throw stones at people instead of take a breath, try to understand how our code is, understand the process, and in my opinion, calling of an emergency meeting, the way it was stipulated, was it was actually utilized. If you look at our code, it says emergency meetings may be held and business may be legally transacted if all council members are present, or if absent members have waived in writing the required notice, or if there is a quorum of the council. Waiver of the notice can be made before or after the meeting is held. Waiver of the notice shall be made a part of the journal for the meeting. The clerk shall make reasonable attempts to notify all council members of the emergency meeting. That means that we can call for an emergency meeting to have a discussion about some action that is going to happen. The problem with the request for the emergency meeting, it actually shoehorned a directive to the manager, which was contrary to a decision that had been voted on by this body. And so if we're going to start trying to pigeonhole or squeeze through direction to the manager utilizing emergency meeting, well, our code also doesn't stipulate whether it takes one or two people. Well, it also doesn't say that somebody from Wasilla can't call an emergency meeting. It also doesn't say that somebody that is an employee can call for an emergency meeting. So in my mind, we have to go back to the emergency meeting. You go back to special meetings as being the minimum requirements. So we would have to have two council members, the mayor or the manager, calling for a meeting. And neither of those actions happened. And so I'd like to ask everybody to take a breath, understand the code, follow the processes, and quit stirring up the community over misinformation. This is where we have to stop. Thank you.
And I would like to just state, as far as the mayor ruling that I did for January 31, my biggest difficulty was the council had taken action. It said we had 5 finalists, and the setting up of the special or emergency meeting was going to try to change that. And I said, we are supposed to do things in public. That is our obligation by the OMA. And so we had discussed it, we voted on it in public to interview, or to have 5 finalists. And my difficulty with the presentation of the idea of a meeting was it was changing that number of finalists and that was all happening not in a public meeting. And so this was my way of trying to address that difficulty of not having a public discussion after we had already had one. And so it was probably a bit creative, but that's what that was. All right. Next, we've got an executive session. Matters of immediate knowledge which would clearly have adverse effect upon the finances of the public entity, discussions regarding library litigation strategies. Mr. Manager, who would you like to be in attendance to this?
Mr. Mayor, I'd request that the clerk would attend, the city attorney would attend, Mr. Brad Hansen and Kylie. I don't remember, sorry, Kylie, I don't remember your last name, from our agent from Combs Insurance.
Okay. We have a motion to that effect?
So move.
Second.
Okay. So moved and seconded that we go into executive session, including the manager, the clerk, the attorney, Mr. Hansen, and Ms. Kylie. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Graver?
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Tudor?
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
All right, we'll take a break here and prepare for executive session.